With 50 years of experience, you can trust us in this new era of electrification. Experience our all-electrified range, including the stunning ES Hybrid Saloon and our award-winning range of plug-in hybrid SUVs. And view our finance offers, including the all-new LBX. Start your 2-for-1 journey with Lexus Letterkenny Port Road. Lexus. Experience amazing.
Highland Radio time checks with Expressway. Travel Route 32 from Letterkenny to Dublin when you book online and travel for less. Expressway, bringing you the time at...
The DL Debate with Sister Sara's Letterkenny, serving food you'll love till 9 p.m. daily in Sara's Kitchen. And there's free admission entertainment every weekend.
Check this.
Welcome one and all to the DL Debate. Thanks so much for tuning in. That's season 5. What an opener we have for you this evening. The one and only Jim McGuinness, our county manager. I got a great in-depth chat with him earlier, the second coming of Jim. We're all very excited by this, and of course Donegal's start to the season. I'm going to catch up with him. Of course, we talked many of the questions that you have from, around GA at the minute, and it's different from his previous tenure with Donegal, and of course the year ahead and his trip around the world, of course, in soccer and everything that he's brought back now to Donegal. A fascinating chat. I hope you're going to enjoy it as much as I did. I'm here, of course, with Joe Dex producing as ever. He's back again. Good man, Joe, and of course head of sport Oisín Kelly. I want to thank, of course, Sister Sara's Kieran Brogan and all the crew down there for their ongoing support and everybody who inputs the show. We're going to have a few different guests on this year, change the format up slightly at times, and that's all coming in the next couple of weeks. I want to say, first of all, well done to John McNulty and the Donegal ladies in their league opener in Division 2. Way to Laois, comfortable victory for them in hard-fought conditions. Well done to John and the girls. We'll be getting more updates from the ladies as the few weeks go on, from the likes of John and from Maureen O'Donnell. I'd also like to congratulate the Waddy Grahams of Glen. I'm sure you all seen it there yesterday. That was an epic victory. You really took the games. Talk about the jaws of defeat. Finals, everyone had backed them to the hilt, thinking it was a straightforward victory. And of course, finals rarely are, but they looked down and out, and it was an amazing last couple of minutes here to come back and snatch victory. As I say, journalist and author and a man that lives up in the area, Michael McMullan, will be live from the centre of Mahara later in the show to discuss the game itself and, of course, the buzz around the town. But now, as I said, I went to the lovely town of Creesla earlier today and I caught up with the man himself, Jim McGuinness. Here's what he had to say. Jim, are you happy to be back for your second tenure as us Donegal fans are, to have you back? What's the feeling?
I'm happy, Brendan. Obviously this week anyway, start of the National League, looking forward to it. We've had a good old campaign there in terms of the pre-season. I suppose when you're going back in, you're always trying to get to the bottom of a lot of questions, energy levels and, what's in the group and how much do they want it and all that type of thing. And in fairness to the lads, they've been excellent. They've worked really, really hard. We've obviously thrown the net fairly wide in terms of looking for new players and young players and players for the future and players for the present, if you like. And that's been a great success, I think, in terms of looking at the squad and what the squad could be now and what it could be in the future. So very happy with their work rate and their endeavour up to this point. We had a good McKenna Cup campaign. Disappointed in the second half, particularly. I think apart from that, it was quite a good performance in the first half against a very stiff breeze. So no, we take a lot of positives from that. Certainly a lot of positives from the pre-season in general. And we're looking forward now to the start of the National League, and this is where in many respects, where it really, really starts to kick in,
Jim, your first tenure in charge of Donegal, 2011, phenomenal 4 years, the three Ulster Championships, the All-Ireland, the second All-Ireland final, that epic semi-final one against Dublin, was history-making stuff. Jim, I'm just wondering, from your introduction in 2011, are there any similarities between the start of that tenure and this one, or has football completely changed now?
I think so, Brendan. I suppose expectation would be one word that would come into my mind. The expectation level at that stage was very low. And obviously we're on the back of a very tough run in Donegal at the minute, and I suppose the expectation level would be in a similar place, or was in a similar place. So I think the job is quite similar in that regard. We have to try and find a way, I suppose, to find new players, to bring new people into the fold, build a team, build a style of play, and obviously the most important thing is build that confidence that will come with that, and hopefully then get to a point, in the not too distant future, that we're very, very competitive. Like I've said many, many times before, there's no guarantees in football. There's no guarantees in life. And if you're in really good shape and you're really tuned in and you're training really hard, the only thing that gives you is the opportunity to be competitive. And then you've got to get into an environment where there's a lot of other teams out there that are looking to do all of the same things. So the challenges are the same. But I suppose in terms of your question, like, my belief system in terms of coming back would have been the same then, and that is we always have good football players, and sometimes the key is trying to get the best out of them, and I think that is probably one of the most important jobs over the next number of weeks and months, is to find a way for them to sort of grow together, and the team to grow together, and get scores on the board and be competitive, and put ourselves in a position where we're going to Celtic Park in the summer that we can give a good account of ourselves. Yeah,
and it was interesting, Jim, but people I think are overanalyzing maybe this McKenna Cup final a bit, because if you look back from your last tenure there, there was so much happening. I know the tactic that Donegal brought in many ways caught a lot of teams out, and a lot of teams mirrored it and copied it years after it. But there was so many players increased their own abilities substantially, became the very best of what they are. And as people are trying to match us up towards other counties and that. But I think individually and then collectively, you'll bring a huge lift to these guys and unearth a few new players. I suppose that's the plan.
That is. I think the two things run side by side. You have to come up with a plan that's going to fit into their skill set, and you have to develop them at an individual level, and then you have to develop a team and a style of play and a culture, that's going to sort of hopefully bring the group together. And when I say the group, I'm talking about the backroom team as well. There's a lot of people now that sort of impact, on the players that are on the pitch, and everybody. I always try to have people in and around it that have a very clear, specific job in terms of supporting the team, and then obviously trying to get them to be in the best position possible to go and do that, as you're talking about, go and express themselves. And a big part of that is a game plan as well, having clarity around things, knowing what your job is, knowing what the opposition want to do and how you can impact that. And so I think you're probably right. There was a lot made of the McKenna Cup. Previously we wouldn't have put the same emphasis on it at all. But I think one of the reasons for that was we were very, very focused at that time and just working on our fitness, because we knew that whenever the league finished, we would still have time to get a lot of stuff done. Whereas this time around, because of the split season, and the fact that the McKenna Cup runs into the league and the league runs straight into the championship, you have to use that really as a springboard, to get your fitness levels up and to get your game plan up. Because even going back to them years you were speaking about, Brendan, you could have had a situation where, say, we played Cavan or Derry or whatever it was in the first round of the championship, and you might have had one or two fellas, maybe a grade 1 hamstring and a tight hamstring and everything. Them fellas are probably gone now. They're not going to play in the next game, whereas previously it was a 3-week or a 4-week turnaround to the next game. So you could have had, your squad, and you could have had your team, and then chances are, bar something pretty, more on the more serious side, they were going to be available for the next game. But that's gone, and that's why I said, you have to cast the net, wide. You have to try and find as many players as possible. You have to try and find as much cover as possible. But we're not at that point yet, because we're still trying to find out who's the best player for the position. But you need 2 people for every position. You really do, and not sort of token tokenism, if you like. They have to be fellas that can actually step in and play, because those turnarounds are much less than they were previously.
Yeah. And Jim, just on that, on the last tenure, you spoke a lot about the journey. What a journey you've been on yourself. When you left Donegal last, you went to Celtic performance coach. You did your coaching badges. We got the news you were heading to Beijing as assistant coach. Then you become head coach at Charlotte. What a trip you've been on yourself, Jim. I suppose everybody's wondering how has that impacted your overall coaching now, and the trip you're on, and what you've learned, and how you've grown in terms of now coming back to GA?
It's a good question, Brendan. Because obviously when I made that decision, I knew the road that was ahead of me, and it's a very, very long road, because all of the things that we would take for granted in a GAA context are things you're learning for the first time. So that imposter syndrome is very, very, very high when you're trying to find your feet. You're trying to understand the game. You're trying to understand how you could train it. You're trying to understand tactics. All of those things are building and developing over years, and it does take years. And then when you're in 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, and that sort of is your life, and it's kind of full time, and it's 24 hours a day, there is this kind of crossover between your Gaelic back and your soccer background, and then there was this kind of sense of everything merging at some stage, and then you move across the divide almost, and then you're always, initially your impulses are so strong towards the GAA because that's all you know. And so that part of it has been interesting, but coming back has been very easy because them instincts are still there. But I do believe there is a lot of things from a soccer point of view as well that now are embedded, if you like, in your thinking. So the journey continues in that regard, and that's
another book.
I don't know about another book. There'll be no book. Nothing else. There's results. That's for sure. And that's what we want out of this journey. We want. The bottom line is we want to try and put Donegal in a better place, and we want to try and strive to move up the ladder and make ourselves competitive again. In the provincial championship, and then go from there. And that's really all we're focused on at the minute, Brendan.
Yeah. Jim, it's an absolutely phenomenal, fascinating story. I don't know many people could take on what you did in that time. And I think a lot of that is not just down to your coaching, your attitudes, but your personality. I remember when it came up about the Donegal job, and people were talking to me, and I only knew a bit about your tactical input in terms of your philosophy. Obviously, you captained me at Donegal, and we had some good times together. But I personally, in a group, you're always a great man, and I thought then that was going to help you so much, and it probably helped you a lot on that journey that you're on. But even though you were obviously going to, China, the language barrier and how all that worked, and then of course Charlotte coming late in and the players, and that was a very, very difficult outcome. But you just mentioned about being back here, and I just noticed from you when I talked to you after Roscommon how kind of content you were in terms of I'm back now and ready to give Donegal. I could see it from you. You were very comfortable in terms of applying again your principles back into Donegal, and I suppose that's the big thing now, Jim, with you being back in here. Everyone now, after last year's situation with not being able to find a manager, we're very, very lucky to have you back in terms of what you can bring to Donegal. And I think after your next tenure, there might be some of those players that you coached in 2012 ready. But just at this point, there wasn't anybody ready. So between the timing of that being right for us and you, Jim, was it something you always thought you would come back in terms of taking Donegal?
It was one of those ones, sort of never say never. I suppose just in the comment you made there about sort of seeing that in me and Ballyshannon for the Roscommon game, I firmly believe that, if you're going to do something, you have to fully focus on it. And that's what I am doing now. I'm fully focused on this job and fully focused on trying to make it the best possible version of itself and trying to get the most out of them fellas. I think that's the only way anything can work. And the same with the soccer, before taking the job and where Donegal were and how, I ended up taking it based on where they were. You know, I just finished my pro licence, you know, so I want to go back there someday too, you know, and I do want to go back there someday in the future, and nobody knows what the future holds, obviously, and how you might feel, you know, further on in your life. But that's something definitely that I want to revisit at some time in the future. So and that'll be a full focus then, and you know, and so for now, we're here, and Donegal are where they are, and I now just have to give it absolutely everything and focus every single day in terms of the team and what the team needs, and try and like you asked the question earlier there about sort of the similarities. The similarities are very similar, Brendan. There's a lot of gaps. And there's the gaps that have to be closed, and you have to fill those gaps. And that sometimes that's about fitness, sometimes it's about tactics, sometimes it's about culture, sometimes it's about, you know, kickouts, whatever it is. But there's gaps appearing all the time. And the secret is to identify them as quickly as possible and come up with a solution for them and fill that gap. And, you know, we played Derry the last night, and, you know, they looked $1 million in the second half there. But, you know, they're 4 years into their sort of system and style of play. And it was nice to be there, nice to be on the sideline and see it that close from my own point of view. And they're really good at what they do, and that's a byproduct of the work that they're doing consistently, you know, night after night, season after season now, and so we're just climbing that ladder now, and that's good, and we're road testing things as well, and there's an unpredictability to some of the things that we're doing at the minute, which is fine as well, and you know, our job is to sort of settle on things, you know, midway through this league, the end of this league, and then sort of come up with a plan, hopefully, that can be impactful in the provincial championship in the summer.
Jim, you just mentioned the start of the league now. We had a wee joke about it. Ross Common, I says it's a priority to go up. You says if we do go up, it wasn't. If we don't, it wasn't. But Jim, is it important in the evolution of the team in terms of, you did it the last time in 2011, we were on about those similarities in terms of coming up to be back in the top flight. We seen Derry, of course, they did a second go at it. You know, Division 2, nothing could be taken for granted, and so it's going to be a tough league campaign, as you're saying, Jim. I think probably different from last number of years. As the top divisions got better, it's pushed Division 2 to be better as well. Mm-hmm. And as you said, there's a lot of percentages where everybody's trying to gain that extra yard, which maybe years before, the top teams that went down from Division 1 generally come up, and the two often, it was a few years Cavan and Roscommon yo-yoed in that. So you had a top 6-7 core teams that really didn't go down. If they did, they come straight up. But I think that landscape's changing now, you know, particularly with the likes of Galway coming back into it, Armagh coming back in it, now Derry's back into it. Mm-hmm. So it's really made the top 1 and 2 a lot more competitive than they were going back a number of years ago.
No, I totally agree. Like, I mean, we've Cork coming to Donegal on Sunday, and you know, they are a team, you know, probably they're not as far on as Derry, but they're definitely a team that has been together for a couple of years now, and they're moving up the ladder, and they showed that last summer in terms of the performances they put in. So that's going to be a very tough nut to crack for us. You know, Armagh's in the division. They were in the Ulster final last year. You know, took the game to penalties against Derry. You know, you've got Meath there, you've got Kildare there. You know, so there's a lot of really good teams there that we're going to have to contend with. But that's good. Like, that's where we want to be. You know, it's very, very important from my own point of view anyway, you know, that we try to do our absolute best for the people of Donegal, particularly them games that are at home. We need to make sure that we're on it as best we can on Sunday, and put our best foot forward and take the game to Cork and ask as many questions as possible, and hopefully that's enough to get 2 points on the board on the first day, because your first game's a very important game. It gives you that platform for the rest of the season, and if you can get a positive result in your first day, you know, your momentum is already building. So Cork will be looking at that the exact same way. You know, they will feel probably coming to Donegal, if they can get a good result, that'll set them up as well for the next 6 games. So yeah, we understand where we're at, and we understand that this is a really big game for us, and we have to prepare accordingly.
Jim, see the overall philosophy. You know, you look at everybody now. Do you get a feeling everybody's playing something similar type game? You know, they pack their defence, they break at pace. There's a lot of work on kick-outs. Is it something now you see every side kind of has in and around a similar tactic. So then it really comes down to like fitness, strength, composure on the ball, and really, I suppose, maybe then those players that have that real ability, maybe they open up the play or they have an out-and-out talent for scoring, they then make the difference between the teams.
Yeah, listen, I think that has always been the case in many respects. Like, you know, going back, you know, through decades, the team that won the All-Ireland, you know, that was what most people coached the following year. You know, you're looking at the best, you know, the best product that's out there in that current year. People will always look at what they're doing and they'll always try to sort of bring those elements into their own group and into their own environment, you know. From the big difference from the last time I was there was the game now is very much about possession, and it's hard to get the ball off players now. Players' skill level on the ball, you've seen that yourself on Saturday evening with the Derry lads. You know, they can take a lot of heat on the ball and still manage to retain it and solo out of situations. That wouldn't have been the case 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Players would probably have coughed that ball up. So the skill levels in terms of retaining the possession at an individual level have gone higher, and then tactics then are impacting as well. You know, you talk a lot about sort of defensive teams and defensive structures, but if you can get your short kickouts away, and a lot of teams are doing this, Roscommon do it, you know, Derry do it, Dublin do it, you know, once they get that ball in their hand and they're looking for that overload with the goalkeeper in the first third, the rest of them are flushing on through. And if you don't track them players, then you're going to be in a very difficult situation, and if you do track them, you're in a low block. So it's not, I don't actually believe that everybody wants to be in a low block all the time. I actually would really disagree with that. But tactics, offensive tactics, are moving the dial in terms of defensive tactics, and I think maybe 10 years ago defensive tactics were moving the dial in terms of offensive tactics. People were asking questions and running into difficulties, and now people understand the game much better, both sides of it. And so it's going to take you know, shifts in the game again to move that before people start following that again, Brendan. That would be my take on it, you know. And that's why we will always keep an open mind in terms of all that. And for me personally, like, you know, the fingerprint of our team previously was transitional football, and that for me will always be the case. And you know, I just love that energy and intensity, and you know, that doesn't necessarily come from the defensive structure anymore. Most of that transitional football now comes from the opposition's kickouts or your own kickouts, and that's why teams are working so hard to make things happen in those two phases of play, because it's a moment when the ball is in contest, if you decide to make it a contest. Because some teams will decide we don't want to make it a contest, we'll let them have it, and they're going to build the play. But then you're into the scenario where they've got the ball, and if they're good on the ball and they know what they're doing on the ball and they're going to drag you forward, then you're going to be in a difficult spot the whole day. You know, so all of them things I think sort of tie into each other in relation to sort of how you want to control the game, allowing the opposition to control the game, and that's coming down to possession at the minute. And that's why we've gone, you know, the way we've gone in the early stages of the season so far. We've been asking questions of teams to see how we can navigate that, and not just how you can navigate it, but also you know, what's the impact of that? You know, is it successful, unsuccessful, you know, worth holding on to? And I've always believed that, you know, you have to have an idea or ideas. Like previously in the McKenna Cup, even, you know, 12, 13 and 14, we would always have road tested about 5 or 6 concepts from the year previous, and maybe 1 or 2 of them would stick. So we've done the exact same thing this time around, but probably with more concepts, because you're coming in, you know, after a long period of not being there, and you need a lot of answers to a lot of questions, and there'll be less next year. But I think it's important to ask those questions. I think it's important as a coach as well to be thinking about those things, because if you run from 24 to 25 to 26 to 27, it's the same thing you were doing last year. You know, you're going to go stale and your players are going to go stale. You have to try to find ways to innovate your own game plan. And, you know, and the last time around, our game plan innovated the game. You know, that was outside of our control. It's not, you know, and it's impossible to, you know, to create the carbon copy anyway. It's just impossible. Like, not unless you're coaching the exact same way as it's been coached, it's not going to be the same thing, you know. And I think, you know, we had a defensive intensity and a transitional game. I think if you looked at what came after that with county teams and club teams, I would say it's defensive shape and not defensive intensity, and a lack of transitional. Like when Donegal won the ball last year, you know, I would say there was an 80% chance that ball was going to go lateral instead of forward. You know, so you can have all the bodies back and you want in the world, but as soon as you win that ball and you go lateral, you're allowing the team to go back anyway. So that's why I say, you know, it's all about your own belief system and how that ties in with the players you have. And so, yeah, all of those types of things are things that are swirling around in your head constantly as you're trying to piece this thing together. You know, when you have to take the rough with the smooth during that period, you know, like we had some very good outings in the McKenna Cup without over-egging the McKenna Cup, and then sort of a dose of reality on Saturday evening, and that's all good. We probably learnt more in the second half on Saturday evening than we did in the previous 3.5 games, you know. Yeah,
very interesting, Jim, and I think you're responding to some of the criticisms around Donegal and people admiring them. The difference is the transition, and as we've seen, we haven't seen graphs where the Dublin team, that brilliant Dublin team, were highlighted with basically their full team inside the 40, let's say, but the transition meant that you didn't notice it, because when they broke with pace like Donegal did, and I think that's the difference. A lot of teams mirrored the defensive shape without having the attack, so as soon as they won it, they give it to the safe option, which was a simple hand pass back or lateral, as you said. And when what that did allowed the other team to drop in, so what you had was two teams that you thought were playing blanket defence, but without the quick transition or an attempt to go forward or kick past the ball, you had a real stalemate, and then that was thrown back to Donegal. Not saying you're copying Donegal, but as you said, it wasn't a complete copying.
But I think as well, Brendan, like, you have to understand who you are yourself, you know. And if you go back to when we played and historically before that and since that and now, like, if you think about Donegal and who Donegal are, you know, we're probably a top 8 team. You know, when we're going well, we're a top 4 team. When we're not going well, we are where we are now, and that's in Division 2. And you'd be expected to be maybe in the top 2 and, you know, in Division 2. So you're a top 10, top 8, top 4 when you're going. That's what we are. And so, you know, there's always those star-studded teams that are going to be up there from a Donegal perspective historically, the whole way through our history. And so we have to understand that we are a team that's fighting that adversity and fighting that challenge. And that was the reason we did what we did. We had to climb that ladder, and we're in the exact same situation now. We have to climb that ladder. And for Donegal, success in the long term would be that sort of consistency of top 4 or top 3 or top 2. But that's history has shown us that's almost impossible. That's almost impossible because of the Dublins and the Kerrys and so forth of this world. So we have to understand where we are, and that then filters into what you need to do. You know, the teams at the bottom of the Premier League play Man City and Liverpool and these teams differently than they play each other. That's the reality, you know, because they know who they are. And equally, Man City make 800 passes in a game because they know who they are. They know they're the best, with the best players and the best infrastructure and the best support systems and the most money. So they play the game a different way and they see the game a different way. And those other lads at the bottom, if they don't do what they do, they don't win. And the interesting thing in the last 10 years is the things that we were doing 10 years ago are the things that the top teams do now because they have to win. Because they have to win. And so now it's up to the bottom tier, and like there's, I would not bottom tier, but there's a top tier in my opinion at the minute, you know, and you could put Derry and Dublin and Kerry into that, and there's another tier then, you know, your Mayos and your Galways and so on and so forth, and then there's another tier, and we're in that third tier at the minute. So we have to find a way to get from tier 3 to tier 2 before we can start thinking about tier 1, and that is the reality. And I think too much is made about sort of the impact. The reason I think Donegal had such an impact on the game the last time round was there was like a light bulb moment that, well, if they can do it and they're historically that top 8, top 10 team, then maybe we can do it as well. And that's why so many people latched onto it. And so that doesn't change anything from our point of view. We are still historically, we are where we are, and at the minute it's not tier 2, it's tier 3, and so we have to find a way to come again, build a team and build a group and try to climb that ladder. And that's not going to be easy. That's not going to be easy because the dial has moved, and you know, so much is going into every single aspect of it, and so many teams now are so tactically savvy. It's not going to be an easy task, and that's what you get up in the morning for. That's what's enjoyable about it.
Jim, just you mentioned there previous about players' fitness and keeping everybody out. How do you juggle the whole season now? Because it's different from the last time you were here, particularly with the group stages of the Championship. And my question's twofold. You've McKenna Cup, you've the League, you've Ulster, and then you have the group stage of the Championship. Is in many ways the group stage of the Championship, in terms of success, does Ulster handicap the Ulster teams getting into it? And how do you keep the Donegal side between that extra training you want to put in and the freshness and the whole season in general?
Yeah, listen, Ulster has always been handicapped. You know, that's the reality. Like, you know, you've other counties and other provinces that just slide straight into a provincial final, and then that sets them up, you know, for the next big game. That has always been the case. But equally, you know, those counties don't celebrate a provincial championship the way we do, and that's the trade-off. And so, yeah, like it'll never ever change for me, Brendan. You know, spent my whole life trying to win a provincial championship. You know, and so did you, and lots of others that never managed it, that were
still haunts me yet.
Exactly. You know, and loads more, and brilliant teams. And the reason for that was it was so bloody hard to win it. That's the reason for it. And so you know, from our point of view, you can sort of have a moan about that, or you can say no, it doesn't impact on anything. You know, there's always going to be 2 championships, in my opinion. You know, we've cast the net wide in the McKenna Cup, and we've looked at lots of things and lots of people, only with the view of trying to narrow things down and get more focused in the National League, and that will only be used to narrow it down even more in the lead into that Derry game. And then the number one thing for us is Celtic Park, because it will never ever change my thought process. And you know, I remember us playing in a Railway Cup game, and playing in Railway Cup games previous to that with Noel Higgerty and Martin McHugh, and you'd Anthony Toll and Henry Downey and James McCartan and all these lads, like, and there were brilliant games and brilliant players, like, and that competition was talked down by every single person that had a microphone. That competition was talked down into oblivion. And there's a lot of people in the GAA that are hell-bent on talking down the provincial championships, even though the provincial championship in Ulster there's no change on it. It's still the exact same thing that it always was. But people's perception of it, and people not taking it seriously, and people focusing on the All-Ireland, and absolute nonsense. But you know, a paper doesn't sort of renege ink and conversations, you know, on podcasts. But the bottom line is, for us, it will always be the number one competition, and whenever we're out of that competition, the next one will be the number one competition. There's 2 competitions every single year in terms of championship football, and you focus on the first one first, and you focus on the second one second, and that is absolutely it. And so for us, everything from the very first training session to that ball being thrown in Celtic Park is focused on that moment, nothing else, and we will obviously be going out to win as many games as we can in Division 2, and you're trying to get promotion, you're trying to keep the wheel turning and build the positivity and get up and play at a higher level the next year. But the only reason you're trying to do that is to be in a better place, to be playing better teams, so you're better positioned for the Ulster Championship. Yes. You know, so you have to have that. You have to have that context all the time, you know, when you're making decisions at this time of the year, what works and what doesn't work, and who's available and who's not, and who's fit enough and who's not. And sometimes fellas have to play to put them in the right spot for that game down thing, and today or Sunday could be impacted in that, but you're not thinking about that. You're thinking about that sunny day when the referee reaches for the ball and throws it up into the sky. That's all you're thinking about.
Yeah, and I know you're going to revel in this Derry game, Jim. And finally, question, listen, the insights have been phenomenal there. Really enjoyed it. Jim, in terms of success going into this season, I know it's year one, there's so many things to be done. You have the McKenna Cup, you have the league. I'm just gauging from talking to you there, you're not thinking about the group stage of the championship at all. You're thinking about Ulster, and whatever happens after that happens, but your total focus is on getting through the league now. In terms of if we come up, hopefully we do, but again, it's about unearthing players and about getting players' mindset right, getting your tactics in place, and then it's all about Celtic Park in the Saturday Championship.
Yeah, like I mean, the group stage is the All Ireland. Like, so you don't even know who you're playing. Do you know what I mean? You know, you can't be there, and it'd be disrespectful to the other competition. You know, so we will work hard in the National League to make sure we're putting ourselves in the best spot possible. We also know, you know, after Saturday night, seeing Derry up close and personal, that's going to be a huge task. They are, you know, a finely tuned machine at the minute with huge belief in themselves, and that's a really good combination, you know, and that's what we want to strive for, and we have to close that gap as much as we can between now and then, to make that game as competitive as possible. And if we were somehow managed to get over that game, then you know who you're going to get in the next one. So that's all it is, Brendan. It's just that full focus on today, with that picture in the back of your mind that we need all of these guys to be in the right spot. You know, is it maybe 12 or 13 weeks this weekend, you know?
Yeah. Jim McGuinness, thanks very much for joining us in the DL debate. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant stuff from Jimmy McGuinness. Really enjoyed that. Some great insights, and I'm sure as the season goes on we'll get some more words from Jim. It was brilliant to get down there and chat to him today. Really enjoyed it. I think, you know, he really opened up in terms of what he thinks football's at now, and I think the difference in the way sides are willing to play, and I suppose it was poignant the way Derry, you know, we're looking at a side like Derry, back-to-back Ulster champions, but they're still willing to play that really rigid percentage game, and he's talking about climbing up the ladder and how difficult that is now, and you can tell from how he's talking there, the hours and hours, the input, the analysis, the planning, the tactics to get to Donegal to climb this ladder. But certainly we look forward now to this week, and it's Cork and McCool Park. Hopefully the one settles a bit, get everybody out there and support. It matters so much to the team, the big Donegal support, and we've already seen that in the McKenna Cup so far. So that's Jim McGuinness's tale. Coming up now, we're going to speak with Michael McMullan, who is live at Mahara and all the celebrations that are going on there. We'll be speaking to Michael just after this break.
The DL debate with Sister Sara's Letterkenny, serving food you'll love till 9 p.m. daily in Sara's kitchen, and there's free admission entertainment every weekend.
Hi folks, Paul McDevitt here, inviting you to join myself and Jimmy Stafford this Monday night for another edition of the Monday Night Sessions. On the show this week, and ahead of their 30-year anniversary show in the Ballard Theatre, we welcome the legendary Mindbenders. Letterkenny and District Pipe Band will also be joining us to tell us all about their upcoming Burns Night celebrations and, of course, playing a few tunes. We'll also be bringing you the very best of new music releases from around the country. So that's the Monday Night Sessions this Monday night between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. right here on Highland Radio.
Imagine Broadband's January sale is here. Grab our Hero high-speed broadband package for just $49.99 per month. Act fast. Sign up before January 31st to enjoy a massive €180 in savings. Head to imagine.ie or free phone us on 1800 938 407 to upgrade to faster broadband faster. Subject to location and availability. Minimum 18-month contract. Activation fees and annual price increase of CPI plus 3% applies. See imagine.ie for full terms and conditions.
Enhance your skills with SafeTech's part-funded training programs. At SafeTech, we provide courses including first aid, roadworks, people moving and handling, confined spaces, electrofusion and machinery training for Ireland and UK sites. Also online programs such as water hygiene, construction supervisors, safety reps and much more. If you have a group for training, SafeTech will go to you. Contact SafeTech today at safetech.ie and take the first step towards upskilling and safety compliance. McCullough Jewellers in Letterkenny are synonymous with fine jewellery, quality watches and giftware. With stores at Main Street, Letterkenny and the Letterkenny Shopping Centre or online at ormccullough.com. You can choose from their quality product range in a relaxed atmosphere, and their sales staff will be happy to help you make the right choice whatever the occasion. McCullough Jewellers, making moments magical for generations.
Hi, Paddy here at Shane Conley Cars in Donegal Town. Are you looking to upgrade your car? With Shane Conley Cars, you'll find makes and models for every budget. Great finance options, and we also accept trade-ins. Check out ShaneConleyCars.com or call in to us at Shane Conley Cars from Lonagher Road, Donegal Town.
The DL Debate with Sister Sara's Letterkenny, serving food you'll love till 9 p.m. daily in Sara's kitchen. And there's free admission entertainment every weekend.
What a story indeed. From the weekend, we had All-Ireland Club Finals. The Waddy Grahams of Glen went in search after their heartbreaking defeat last season to Kilmacud Crokes and a bit of controversy. They already accounted for them in the semi-final, and a lot of them were expecting a straightforward victory. I wouldn't say straightforward, but they were huge favourites going into the game. I have a man up here now that knows a bit about them and the area, and he's going to talk to us live from Mahara. Michael McMullan, how are you, sir?
Brendan, form's very good. Mahara is absolutely buzzing. 2 degrees. The famous Monday Club band that everybody in Ireland knows about are playing, and the homecoming has been and gone on the back of a lorry. Yeah. Seamus McFerrin, Andy Merrigan and John McLaughlin and Glen are champions. Big night. 3 big names there, 3 big trophies indeed. What a few years, Mal. And I texted you earlier and you said, listen, I'm going to be in the middle of town. And I says, no, that's great because it gives you a bit of atmosphere and a bit of vibe for what's happening there. What a few years, Mel. You know, people talking about some of the powerhouses of Ulster and coming through and how long it takes and that. You know, from Glen there, from the phenomenal underage and the breakthroughs, and now to be at the pinnacle of club football. Have you ever seen a story like that, Mel, in all your time? Well, it's definitely a fast growth, Brenton. Like 2013, they were relegated. They didn't win the intermediate championship. They obviously dominated minor football. And actually, in the middle of the noughties, there was a couple of years where they couldn't actually field the minor team, I was told last night. So that's where they've came from. It makes the story even more seismic than it actually is. But to have won 3 Derry championships, 2 Ulster, 1 All-Ireland, with Kilcoo after extra time, who won the All-Ireland, and Kilmacud obviously in the final, are the only 2 teams to have beaten them under Malachi's tenure in championship. That's an amazing statistic. That's amazing consistency. And I suppose it's no coincidence that Andy Merrigan Cup's in the hall behind me here. Yes, indeed. And Michael, going into the game, of course, you know, after the victory over Kilmacud, you know, you seen Malachy Road getting the players down the tunnel quick and being very conscious of getting the head down and getting ready for the final. Of course, Bridget's coming over Castlehaven, not playing well in the second half, and almost everybody, Mel, kind of thought that over the course of the game that Glen would have more firepower, be better, just all-round team. And they would kind of, I'm not saying comfortable, of course, a final, but I thought they would in some way control the game enough to see it out. And the game was anything like that. I mean, you had to be impressed by what Bridges brought to the game. I definitely am. And Brendan, if you're talking about Glen, it was probably the most un-Glen-like performance. Like chatting to some of the fans on the Apple Green on the way down, and even in and around Mars, they were so nervous, Brendan, because they were favourites. You could sense that they were nervous. But I would sort of say to them, look, you're a team that are good at playing with the ball regardless of the conditions. Like you saw the fog, like it was difficult. But they were the exact opposite. They were giving the ball away. They were kicking it out over the sideline. And when it was coming back, Ben O'Carroll had an acre of room to do damage, and it was worrying for them. And the other problem was that any time went up the pitch, they're misfiring, and it's not a good combination.
Yes. You always felt there was passages of play, though, I thought, Michael, where Glen really controlled the ball. But as you say, they were snatching at chances and hitting from long range, and some subs were coming on, having a goal probably at the wrong time, particularly when they needed to eat into that 4-point deficit. And the camera span around the Malach O'Rourke a few times, and I thought, God, it just doesn't seem to be happening, in them pivotal moments. Then we had, of course, the glass cometh there, cometh the man scenario. Well, what's your feeling on that goal in terms of the keeper coming out, the positioning? Obviously lost his bearings, and a lot of the things led to it, but certainly Glass kept his cool, and that I think there was never. I don't think points were going to be enough. Possibly you could say they might have got to a draw point, but even that looked difficult and unlikely. But certainly a goal was needed, and Glass conjured up a wonder goal.
They definitely weren't going to win it without that goal, and as we saw in the minutes after that, sure, it was a last minute free that was missed, so they needed that goal. And as you say, the goalie was out of position and he just went for it. Like he actually said in his interview that he just had to go for it. Like this time last year, he had a snapshot, Conor First saves it, and it's Kilmacud who are all Ireland champions. And I was interviewed Tiernan Flanagan afterwards, and he actually said he was behind Glass when he took the shot, and he sort of thought, look, there's only one place this is going here. And but it just capped off everything that he did. Like whenever they were struggling in the first half, he made 3 interceptions. That unseen work that he does, and probably a lot of people don't actually see it. He scored a point with his left foot when they needed a score. He went for absolutely everything in the middle. He slammed over a 45, and then, as you say, that goal. What a performance! There's absolutely nothing else he could have done in his whole hour yesterday that would have bettered it. It was probably a 10 out of 10 performance if there's such a thing.
Yeah. And well, I suppose you looked at the first half. There was a couple of really last ditch blocks, and you always get the feeling at Croke Park, it is a forwards type pitch. I mean, you have players like Ben O'Carroll and them, nipping round, changing runs. I was really impressed with some of the movement of Bridget's. But again, for every movement, there seemed to be a last-minute a ditch block. There was some phenomenal blocking by Glen right up until the end of the game. Remember, I think it was O'Carroll as well. There was a brilliant block down. There was some heroic efforts from their defence to I suppose, that made up for a lot of the misses from the forwards.
Yeah, that one you're talking about, well, Tiernan Flanagan had been one in the first half when the house was down, but that one you're talking about, Brenton, it was Cathal Mulholland who had spent 10 minutes in the sin bin. Probably, you can imagine his whole career was probably going through his head in those 10 minutes about, have I missed my chance? And when he went on, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, it might have been level or Glen might have been one up, I can't remember, but, that block was another dose of energy. And another thing that sort of sticks out with me when you're talking about those chances was after Glen's goal, Ethan Doherty took possession, and where most of the game he was bottled up, he seemed to have a completely different new level of energy after the goal. And you just got that feeling even from that run that there's only going to be one winner. I felt that run alone typified it, I thought.
And Miles, just at that point with the black card and the 4 points up on that, and we see this all the time, Miles, was it Glen was enforcing themselves? Because I thought they were anyway. And Bridges looked to sit and probably thought they would tag on one or two. It's just when they broke forward then they seemed to be very isolated, and it seemed that Glen were just building up this head of steam. They they couldn't get the scores that they needed to pull it back in points up in the Glasses goal. But you really sent, I think, they really feel at champions. Maybe the Bridges didn't have in that vital moment to maybe get possession and work it up the pitch. It seemed to be very much a breakout, and somebody would be caught in their own along the line. They would turn over possession and Glen would build again.
That's probably bang on. It'll be interesting to ask Bridget's their view on that, because, as you say, it was isolated, and when it went up, Ryan Dugan put in an unbelievable second half performance on O'Carroll. He made a turnover. You used that word, isolated. He made a turnover under the scoreboard, and one of those ones where you roar and fist pump when you do it. And I remember looking up at the scoreboard and thinking, there's still time, and St Bridges haven't pulled away yet.
Yeah.
And Glen seemed to be happy enough to think, well, we're going to put Dugan back on O'Carroll, and we're chasing this game. It's up to every other person to just go for it.
Yeah.
Is there any point in being beat by 4 points? You may as well be beat by 44 as opposed to not go for it.
Yeah. Listen, man, what a story, and I think the whole country's captured by it, and I suppose the drama then that led to it, particularly after the defeat last year, third year in a row a team has come back from losing a final to win it. I suppose Bridget's can take that as a consolation. We mean to see what they come with next year. But man, listen, just from all us here in Donegal, just want to wish us well done. You have a great night up there in Mahara, and make sure you're in at work early tomorrow morning.
Never miss a day's work, Brendan. Never.
My man, fair play to you. You're a legend of a man. Well, listen, thanks so much for that update this evening, and as I say, enjoy the celebrations.
Thanks, Brendan.
Brilliant. Michael McMullan there, as ever. Great man to chat to up in Mahara. Folks, that's the end of the show. I hope you enjoyed it. Jimmy's interview. Joe Dex producing here. Of course, Michael McMullan. You just heard there, head of sport. Oisin Kelly, as I say, Sister Sara's and everyone for supporting the show. We're playing Cork next week. We'll be back to review it and all the other GA news of the week. We'll talk to them.
The DL Debate with Sister Sara's Letterkenny.